Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 241. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have back with us the incomparably talented and internationally revered creative team of Fugitive Poems Comics, Christian De Matteo and James Lines.
That is, I'm gonna get that tattooed somewhere. I love it. Thank you.
Last time the two of you were on, you were promoting Containment Breach Volume 2, and now Containment Breach Volume 2 Myth Reborn, which is that was a pretty big stack. Yeah, it was a very nice thick anthology. This time you're here to talk about Volume 3, which is Containment Breach Volume 3 of Clouds and Ether. So
Yes.
that sounds exciting. Yeah, so that is launching as of this recording. It's launching at the end of February. And for those that might not have listened to our previous episode where you kind of talked about the origin of Fugitive Poem Comics, do the two of you want to talk about the origin story of how you two got together?
Michael Grassi is a friend of mine, and he asked me to write a comic for him at one point. And I'd never written comics, which is hysterical because I'm a lifelong comic fan and a writer. But I had wanted to be a comic book artist and then discovered I couldn't draw. So instead of saying, well, I love to write, I'll write comics, I started writing short stories. I don't know why. He got me writing comics, and then one day I had an idea that, it was his ideas I was working on. I had an idea, and instead of it being a screenplay or a short story or a novel, it was clearly a comic. And I was shocked. I'd never had an idea that went straight to that, and I wrote it. And James pilfered it off of Mike's desk, I think is the and the next day he comes in with the first drawing anyone had ever done of one of my ideas. I'm telling it wrong. I offended him, and he's leaving. See, our partnership. See that?
Oh man, I'm getting the historic document that you're talking.
And I was stunned. Pamela is the character's name, and there's a story that hasn't come out yet. It's our raison d'être, which I'm sure I said wrong. It is the reason we formed Fugitive Poems is to make the series finished, and we've got little hints of it on our website, fugitivepoems.com. And it's Pamela walking down the street, and it was her. It was exactly how I'd imagined it, and he had seen it the minute he'd read the words. He'd seen what it looked like.
And I remember last time you were on when you were talking about Containment Breach Volume 1 never came out as a Kickstarter. That was something that you kind of like released as an indie, right?
100%. We were busy working on Finis and a couple of other shorts and learning our way around figuring out how to make comics, I was talking to Matt Queen on Twitter. We started joking around about something and said, well, I wonder how quick we could put an anthology together. And James and I decided to be the impetus to do it. And we got Matt and a couple other guys to jump in, Michael Flanagan and a guy goes by the name Purple Smurf and John Jack. And we did it zine style. We were talking before the show about letting our Gen X freak flag fly. We did this like it was only digital. So it was the modern equivalent of stapling it and putting it on like in a coffee shop. It was only digital, and it's got great stories in it. This is some of my one of my favorite things. James draws amazing stuff all the time, and we've got articles in here and all kinds of stuff. And we just kind of did it as a hit and run zine, and it was popular. And we dug the process. I love editing people's writing and their comics, and James amazing at editing their art. Giving that guidance because we're both teachers. And we discovered that as much as making comics, we loved working with helping raise the flags of other people. So we were going to do Containment Breach Volume 2 zine style, but we got so many great people that wanted to work on it that no articles this time. It was just full comics. And that's where Volume 3, and I'll tell you a secret, Volume 4, which is also already made and ready to go.
What?
Wow. We're going to fire right into Volume 4, which is wild as well. Wow. So we're trying to raise as many flags as we can. Let everyone like banners. We're not raising flags. Raising flags is bad. We're raising banners. Sorry. And we discovered a real passion for making comics and working with comic creators, and that's It's been awesome.
Wow. Okay. So talk to us about, because Myth Reborn, you had a theme in volume 2.
And one.
And yeah, and what? So what were the themes of volume 1 and volume 2, and then we'll talk about volume 3.
Well, volume 1 is going to shock you. No one else is talking about this. You're not going to have any idea where it came from. Volume 1's theme was Quarantine Chronicles. It was March of 2020,
Right.
and we thought maybe we had 6 weeks of being indoors. And it was what we were all thinking about, and I was sort of looking for an outlet for the concept, but there's no COVID stories in the book. The idea was the concept of quarantine and all the other things it could mean, and that's the theme. So everyone had to come up with a story that had something to do with some sort of quarantine. But we have a thing that nobody else does, and when you're watching this video, know that as of me saying this, nobody else is doing it, because people are going to steal this because it's brilliant. And I'm humble. I'm very humble. We have every team that works on our book also come up with a prompt, whatever they want. It could be a tentacle. No tentacles. That's a thing. Forget that. I was looking at no tentacles. It could be, a hammer and a saw. It could be terrible twos, something we were talking about earlier. It could be crayons. It could be the sacred tree. Every team comes up with a random prompt. They send them to me. I shuffle them and redistribute them. So, Barney, your team is going to you've got to write a comic under the umbrella theme of the book, Mythology Reborn, right? Quarantine Chronicles of Clouds and Ether. But you also have to somehow include something to do with the prompt you were given. And as a result, we get these unbelievably original, fresh, exciting stories. And everyone loves the process of, how the hell am I going to put that into this story? One of the best in this book, Leland Bjerg and Camilla Sims, who got teamed to buy another company together as well. Like, we teamed them. We randomly put them together. Some other companies saw it too. So they've got another book coming out this year, another story in another book. They got the prompt Hammurabi's coat. And Leland emailed me, and I found out when I interviewed him, which is these interviews will be coming out in our YouTube channels shortly, that he was actually angry. But he's Canadian, and I didn't know it because it was a very polite email. And he told me later, because I was really angry. He emailed me, "You meant Hammurabi's code, right?" And I'm like, "No, Hammurabi's coat." What the heck am I going to do with that? Well, he came up with an incredible story, and him and Camilla did something amazing, and it's in this new book.
Of Clouds and Ether, what's the theme on that? It seems very obviously airy. It just seems like something that seems more elusive than Myth Reborn, it seems like.
Yeah, we've been pulling around, we've been trying to think about how to reach as much of an audience as possible without divulging which is still a secret. We kind of have the yin and yang of storytelling. The Clouds and Ether sort of cover some different ground from what we have on the other one. So we're trying to kind of break it up and keep it going, because one of the cool things about the anthologies, going back to what Christian said, with the prompts and so forth, based on a central theme, is even though the stories are quite different as from what you can see here, there's still that kind of link. There's that connective tissue in there that when you read through it, you're still able to get those together. So, well, Christian, you came up with that theme. So, what did you mean by Clouds and Ether? Excuse me.
So the idea was to go. I wanted a sci-fi feel to the book, and we don't ever tell people what genre. That's the thing, is these books do not have a genre. We don't tell people what they're writing. We give them the theme, and they can go where they want with it. We've had some people go in a scary direction with Clouds and Ether. We've had some people go in a very light and airy direction, lots of fun. But I wanted to come up with something that wasn't as brutal and hit you over the head as Volume 4 is going to be. Volume 4 is being released closer to October for a reason. I'll leave it at that. We wanted this to be sort of the balance, and we wanted this to be bright. I'm a big fan of, as is James, the work of Mobius. and that kind of European science fiction. And I thought, I wonder if we, without telling anyone to do that, can sort of play in that sandbox. And it's funny because the story that James and I did together is not like that. It's on the outskirts of that. It's more on the noir end. But then we've got stories like you were showing, some of these brighter colors. And the book, when you're flipping through it, it balances so beautifully. It's so exuberant and vibrant, and that's what I wanted with Of Clouds and Ether. And I wrote to people that we want to think about the, the musica universalis, some philosophical concepts. We want to think about astral projection. We want to think about other worlds and gods and the creatures of the ether, and the old idea of ether, AETHER, that weird AE letter. Right. And we kind of brainstormed about that and gave some sense of that. And then but that was like in 3 lines that we sent all the contributors. And then we just let them go and do it, because we never want to have too much control over it. These are not genre-based anthologies. They're sort of conceptually based. And the goal is to really let all these great indie creators be themselves, show who they are. I took this prompt and it took me here, and this company let me do it. The only thing we ask is that it be awesome, and they all are.
Well, then it takes me to that point where you said that you do editing. So you'd mostly then have to do line editing, not necessarily developmental editing then in that case, correct?
Well, that's an interesting question. We let them come up with the concept completely themselves. Yes. Right. So usually, you're right. But it's not line editing. It's not like just for grammar. I look at the stories, and our editor, editor Mark Capitelli, who is unbelievable and incredible to work with. We look at them holistically, and the thing that Mark and I talk about a lot as far as story goes is your story can be anything you want it to be. But once you tell me the rules of your story, we're going to make you stick to them. Because nothing worse than reading something or watching something where they set up a whole thing. It's very clearly this is how it works, and then they let it go for a cool scene. So you tell me the rules of your world. People, breathe water. Fine, they breathe water, but don't let me see anyone breathing anything else. Right? Your story has to be great and work within the parameters of your own creation, and we hold people to that. And that's actually really gotten some incredible ideas to come out, because a lot of times, and I'm a writer first and foremost, so I'm not talking about anyone else. The cliche comes into your brain. You're like, oh, action sequence, it'll go like this. And Mark will lean in, or I'll lean in, or James will lean in because he gets involved in this too, and say, but that's not how that happens in the gravity you've created, right? And they're now forced to pull back and say, well, how would this happen in my world? And now it's something that's never seen the light of day before. We just want everyone to be their very best. And we have so much fun with it. I love learning the rules of your story, and then learning your characters and saying, well, you know what? Based on what you told me, I don't think she'd say that there. What do you think? And it's so much fun.
We have the process set up where, we have a lot of input into what they're doing to make the story as good as it can be. We don't just kind of take what they give us and hope for the best. We're involved for all, from the pencil stage. I tend to look more at I'm more obviously of a visual guy, so I'm looking more at the layouts and so forth, and making sure the story is being told visually and things make sense. And Christian and Mark are involved in the story pretty intimately. So by no means am I taking full credit for what we have, but I think at least that process is what makes our books so good, because we spend so much time developing the stories and so forth. And Christian has such a love for good storytelling that we won't just take secondhand stuff or things that are rushed to go out to print. We really sort of tackle each story and make sure that it's both written well and laid out well, so it makes sense. So it all goes together and fits like a puzzle.
Because you both have that education background. So I guess my next question would be, is having that education background make you better project managers on this anthology series, or being a project manager for an anthology series have made you better educators in your other work?
I think it goes. I think it goes both ways. I think it's always good for a student to see that you're working in the real world and doing, real work. I won't answer for Christian, but I don't consider myself an academic. I consider myself someone who's working and doing what they're doing, and I like to show my students what it is that I do. But also having done a couple of these now, that's definitely improving our skills with that. And I think what really comes is, being 20 years at teaching art and so forth, it's really easy for me to give concise and real feedback on artwork, and not just, oh, that's cool, or, oh, this doesn't look right. I can really go in and sort of, having all that experience, I go in and really talk to people. Some of these guys, they're incredible artists, but I know how to talk and even critique someone who's doing work that's as good, if not better than mine, just from the teaching experience. And the contributors really seem to like that. I'm actually surprised. It's like, I think it has to do with the age. Sometimes my students, I call them all kids because I'm an old man. Sometimes they'll get sort of upset if I critique them, and then it takes them a couple of weeks to come back and say, okay, I see what you mean, professor. But these guys and ladies, they seem to really love the input that they get, both from Christian and the editing and any critiquing that I give them on it. Because being an artist as well, it's have someone point out things and be further along on that road, and be able to show, point out things to you that you might not have ever even noticed about your own work.
I gauge my success at this by the fact that thus far I have been told thank you a great deal more than I've been told to go straight to hell. And strictly as far as me helping people with their work, not in the rest of my life. It's the balance is very different in the rest of my life. But I got an email after we wrapped on one of the books that I sat with in astonishment, because it wasn't just a thank you. He went on and told me where I had helped him and what it had bought. And I get so into it. I'll just, show me your story, and I'm like, oh, let's take a look at this. There's some people that, they see a car engine, they can take it apart and put it back together, right? I'm not that guy at all. I can do that though with your story. I can see it and I look around and have you tried this and this little tweet? I just get excited about it. It's not even work to me. I'm not even editing. I spend entirely too long on the scripts that come in. I talk to other people and they're like, well, I don't spend more than this amount of time. I'll sit there and I'll be like, oh, what if we do this? And not micromanaging either. And I make sure that I'm giving concepts. I'm not saying change this, change this, change this. And I've been thanked for it. So far it's still working. And we did this. This is a passion project. We love this. This makes us happy. This is the high point of what we do. And it's remained so. We have a very strict, how do I say this on your show? Well, no jerk policy, which is not actually what it's called. And we actually advertise it. And when you sign on to our project, we have a little blurb on the site about that. Is that you got to love doing this. We will always treat you with respect. Always. Right. We will always be upfront with you, and we're here for fun, but we expect the same back. If dealing with you stops being fun, I already have a day job. I don't need more. I'm not importing that. I will end the relationship. And most people have really been great about that. They come to create something cool, and we get to put it out, and we get to say, hey, Jack Van Tome, have you seen his work? Elliot Rodriguez, have you seen his work? Grant Diarmid, have you seen his work? We put them in a book because they're awesome. And I'm so proud to be doing that.
And so last time we were talking about that you had too many writers, too many artists in your previous book, that you had to you ran out of space. Did you see, so for volume 2, I mean for volume 3, and also as you're mentioning volume 4, how do you balance returning writers and artists to new writers and artists that have been waiting in the wings from the previous anthologies?
That was a huge thing to figure out. The first way that we balanced it, Barney, was by deciding to do 2 books. me and James and Mark Capitelli had a meeting, and I'm like, okay, so almost 80% of the people that submitted are stellar to begin with. So that, that makes the choosing process much harder. And I don't want to turn these folks away. They're ready to go. They got such cool stuff, but we can't put it all in one book. And I think it was James. I think it was you. It was like, well, why don't we do 2 books?
Yeah. Well, we didn't want to price ourselves out by making like a 300-page book and have to charge $50 for it. We wanted to keep about the same price point. So we figured, that we could get, try to be professional and put together 2 books together, and then really focus on marketing and stuff, because we now have the 2 products together, and thinking, a little more intelligently about what, how we're promoting our Kickstarter and all that sort of stuff. And so far it's worked out. It was kind of hairy for a while, but it all has worked out in the end. And now we have this sort of breathing room to be able to do, other things. We also have, we're working on our own, Fugitive Poems. We're not just publishers. We do our own thing. So we're going to have time to work on our one-offs, new projects, even, thinking in business terms. Neither of us are business moguls, but we're starting to figure out ideas on how to branch the business out and sort of think of new paths and that kind of thing. So it's really exciting that to have this one up for the Kickstarter, and then there's never really a break, but the next one, it's nice to have that sort of in the pail. Or
James says, why don't we do 2 books? And Mark and I are like, oh, how cool would it be to do? And as we're saying that, James is like, I'm going to regret saying that. But and I it was exhausting doing editing and putting together. So you've got they've got to send us the script, and a number of people will send a pitch first. We don't require it every time, but if you want to work with me on the pitch, I'll do that. So then there's a script check-in date, and we read all the scripts and comment on all the scripts and send them back. And then they've got to tweak them and then send them back to us for approval. So we read them a second time. Then they go to the artist for pencils, and then they go to then we approve that, and then inks. And then we go to colors and letters. Usually the letters should be brought in. Kevin Lintz at Lintz Lettering on Twitter is a great letterer, and he told me years ago on the last project, the beginning of it, he says, people think that the letterer is the last person you bring in. The letterer should come in when the lines are being drawn, so that everyone makes sure that there's room for balloons. And he's 100% right, because it's so easy to forget that. And he actually is on a story that I did with Jay Sheik. Actually, I'll bring this up now. If you go right now to the pre-launch, today is Thursday, the 9th. Friday, the 10th, I'm going to be doing a drawing. And one of our pre-launch subscribers, you got to go to the Kickstarter, look for Fugitive Poems, Containment Breach Volume 3, and click Notify Me on Launch. And on Friday, I am going to select randomly one person who signed up for the pre-launch to receive this exclusive poster from Jay Sheik. He did this for Myth Reborn. This is an exclusive poster that's in very few places in the world. That will send you this and a copy of Containment Breach Volume 2, Myth Reborn, which also has a story in it drawn by Jay Sheik. So right now, get over to Kickstarter. If you go to fugitivepoems.com, you see the header right there for Containment Breach Volume 3. You can click right over to Kickstarter, click Notify Me on Launch, and tomorrow I will be sending some lucky person that exclusive poster in the book.
Well, the followers just went up one, so there you go.
Thank you.
If you're unfamiliar with the Kickstarter thing, this is not. There's no strings attached. This is not you don't have to pay anything. It's just basically it's just a notification, and it really helps to sort of get the launch going. Gassing up the launch. So, but there's you're not stuck on anything. Of course, we hope that you support the launch as well. But that pre-launch is basically just going to be telling you that our first official day.
And it helps us out too, because the higher the pre-launch numbers, the more noticed you are on the algorithm of Kickstarter. So we're trying to get, because we want everyone to see this work. And the reason I did that segue is you noticed before we got on that I'm wearing a Weird Al shirt. I'm a huge fan. Kevin Lentz lettered a comic that I did for Containment Breach Volume 3 of Clouds and Ether called the Yankovic Theorem. I wrote it. Jay Sheik drew it. Ovnish Sanathian, known as @BreadRaiser on Twitter, he colored it, and holy cow, did he knock it out of the park. Kevin lettered it. It's called the Yankovic Theorem. It's one of the weirdest things you've ever read. There's a giant marauding chicken in it. I'm gonna say that. It was such a pleasure to get to work with these folks. And so I was in the process. James was in the process because James drew another comic that I wrote. Right. So we are both writing and drawing while we're going through the step by step of everyone else's. Doing the 2 books at once was a hell of a thing. But Barney, the proof of the pudding is that we didn't want to kill ourselves because it was exhausting. And there were nights where I didn't get any sleep, going from editing all night to my day job, and James too. But at no point did I regret it because of the fun we're having and what we're putting out in the world. And that's it's amazing. It's awesome.
And so one of the challenges, I think you brought this up last time too, is one of the challenges of putting anthologies together is trying to balance the rhythm of the stories to make sure the reader still stays engaged. How complicated was that for you for this volume?
We're actually in that process right now. We're going to meet after this interview, and we're working on the galley, which is the story order. That's still in contention, so we'll be working on that tonight. Once again, sort of like the way we handle everything else, Christian and Mark are looking at it, the story driven angle on, the order. And then I'm looking on more of a visual angle, try to split things up and, make them all make sense in their order. So that's actually still a work in progress. Like Christian said earlier, I'd say it's a lot of fun. I mean, we started off, I think we were texting or emailing, or we kind of started off just throwing our own list together, and it was a lot of fun just going through it. So that's, to have all this great artwork to look at and know that we have this part in it, and be able to assemble the book together is fun.
That one on the left with the God in the sky was drawn by the amazing Camilla Sims, on the story written by Leland Bjerg. Leland Bjerg, do I not have it right next to me? Leland Bjerg just put out Berserker Monk. I should have had it with me to show you. If you get a chance, go look for Berserker Monk. It is a wild story that he wrote and lettered. He's a killer letterer. He lettered the last story in Containment Breach Volume 2. He did the lettering on this. Absolutely beautiful. But he is a great writer too. And he put out Capsules last year and Berserker Monk. And Capsules 2 is coming. He's terrific. And that's Hammurabi's coat. And that he got it. He was annoyed with me. And then he wrote this really cool story. Him and Camilla came up with this beautiful look for the story. And if you see on the right there, we have Fern Lamb drew a story by J.D. Harlock with this infant of doom floating in the sky. Another wild story. And you see these different flares of color and art. And this is when you're going through the book, this is what you're saying. And that's what we're going to be making sure to go back to your earlier question about. This is Jim Coffin. The bottom left one is from a story written by the great Casey Allen of thecomicjam.com. Terrific writer. He did Voodoo Child and Bigfoot Knows Karate.
Yeah.
And he wrote this story that Jim Coffin, who I insist on calling Big Jim Coffin, because I can't look at his name and not put Big in front of it. Big Jim Coffin is the artist. And then to the right of that is Yu Feng is the artist. And Andres Briano with Tom Lynett lettering. It's a wild, in the color again. You look at these colors, and they're all so different, such different styles. We've got Chase Bishop on a story written by Patrick Hayes and lettered by Kyler Merrill on the left there. That's our cyber noir. To the right, up a little bit, is Sam Prouse. What an artist! Drawing a story by Travis B. Hill. The other half of that image, by the way, is what you want to see. I was a real jerk and just put this. You can't wait till you see the other half of that image. What a cool story that is. And then beneath that is a story by the writer Tay Bellick, who, wow, what was amazing what she did here. And the artist is Iacopo Callisti. And the letterer on that is Aubrey Jepson, who's also a tremendous editor if you're looking for an editor. Just really cool. These stories, I'm so proud of all of these stories. Yankovic Theorem is the top, all the way on the top of the page on the right that Jay Sheik drew. Yeah, man, I'm so excited about all of these. So the top right is Jay Sheik drew that, and Avnish. Avnish, you can call me and yell at me later about your last name. I apologize. Sethanathian, at Bread Raiser, and he colored it and kept the one Kevin Lynch lettered. And to the left of that, our campaign image is from Gabe Martini, who is a South American artist who is just incredible. And then we've got Jack Van Tome on the right there. His story with Patrick Hicks called As Above is so cool. And the visuals are gorgeous. And he sent me this drawing, this panel, when he made it. This reflection in the glass. And I said to him, I said, all right, you know I'm a fan, but you've just hit another level. That's such a cool image. And these are the people we get to work with.
Right.
On the left here are the Hill brothers. R. Case Hill is the artist, and Michael Hill is the writer. In one of the wildest stories you've ever read, I go back to it over and over again. It's called Hemlock. And I've said this before. I said, I hope you guys aren't offended by this. I hope you understand the incredible compliment this is. But when I look at your comic, I see that you're the kid in the room, the high schooler in the room, dressed all in black, who's not paying any attention. And I walk over and say, what are you doing in your notebook? And you open it up, and it's this abject badassery. This is what you're doing. That's the style I see, and they loved it. And one of my favorite panels of many favorite panels in this story that James and I did together. On the right here is from Thermoclines, our story, which is wild. That James drew that gentleman with the gun. And the energy of that panel is just incredible. And on the left, we have Gabe Martini, who's I told you, he's got that first image of the project. There's a story by Dustin Luke Nelson, who's an excellent writer. And Jack Van Tome actually colored this. And Gabe Martini lettered and drew it. And it's another wild one. Matt Natalia, who's got, if you go on Amazon, look for House on Fire, pre-order it. It's coming out in April. He did Carousel for Dauntless. That's not the full name of it. I can't think of the full name of it. But if you go to Dauntless Stories, he did a book called Carousel for them. He's got House on Fire coming out right now, and he did this story for us. It's amazing. Just great. Marty, I'm so excited about this book. And there are other things in here, too, that I'm not even hinting at.
And so what can people expect from like the tier levels? What are some of the unique tiers that you'd be putting out for this Kickstarter?
Well, one that we liked was that worked well for our first Kickstarter. Christian and I still kind of screwed up. We sometimes call it Containment Breach 2-1 because that's the first one that we kickstarted. Yeah, we didn't have anything else, so we're gonna have another legacy tier while supplies last on. So Containment Breach 1 there, you may have noticed it has a shiny cover. That's our second printing of that book. So that's going to go the way of the dodos by the time we finish up that story. So if you're one of these avid comic collectors and you want the whole series, that's going to be all there is. So that's a pretty exclusive thing. The first edition that we did, we actually did it as a test run to test our printer, our commercial printer, to see how it came out, and we were so excited about it that we have gone with them ever since. But that was a limited number of copies. And then second edition, do you remember how many we did, Christian? I think we did 100, right?
Yeah, correct.
I think we did 100, and then so that's going to be it. Once those are gone, they're gone. We're not going to be printing those out again. So that will be in the legacy one. So we'll have 1, 2, and 3.
And so we're going to have other reward levels as well. So we'll have the legacy tier. We're going to have the book. We're going to have we're going to do book size prints of really cool art from the book as well at different levels for art. We try to give people, we did postcards on the last one, but it's just not big enough for me. I like the larger size. So we're going to do book size prints, pinups that people can hang, nice quality. So we'll be doing that as well. And we always have a tier where James, there's 2 or 3 available of James's art from the story on the book, like original art. And then we have a tier where James will draw something just for you. The funny thing about all the reward tiers is all the work goes to James. Nobody wants anything from the writer. So as a gag, last time I had a tier where you could get a signed copy of the script, by which I mean I just printed it out of my crappy regular printer, right? And I signed it, and a couple of people went for it. So I'm going to be doing that again, just so I can pretend I'm doing an equal amount of work here. But really, it's only the artist people want stuff from.
That's interesting. So that's, as you say, it's people can learn more about this if they go to fugitivepoems.com.
Yes.
They'll be able to see that there's also some really good links to the Kickstarter page on there. They can click on that, and as you mentioned, clicking on the notify me on launch is going to be really important, so they can see that pop up. And so if people want to learn more about just Fugitive Poems in general, would going to the website is the best place to go to?
Absolutely. Go to the website, and if you want to talk to me, DM me at Fugitive Poems on Twitter. You can certainly do that as well. But fugitivepoems.com has our origin story. It has our bios.
Yeah. So we have also Fugitive Poems on Instagram. You can follow. Jam Lines on Instagram, but and Fugitive, there's a Fugitive Poems page on Facebook, which we're going to be putting a lot of stuff up in preparation for the launch, and of course when the launch comes out. And we also have a new set of videos that we're going to be putting out on our YouTube channel. We do have a lot of content up there of the previous contributors, but some of them that are up there are also in 3 and 4. We have plans in the works for creating educational videos, tutorial, I guess, educational, kind of more like theory. Some of the stuff that we go through with our contributors. We have everyone. We actually have some people that have worked for Marvel on this new title, but we also have people that they're not novices, but they have we kind of mentor them along. So Christian and I have been talking about turning some of that content, some of the stuff that we do again and again with our contributors, and turning it into video content, so then anyone can benefit from it. So that'll be that's on our wish list when we eventually have time to do something like that. Right. We'll have those sort of content videos up there as well. So you should follow us on YouTube if you're interested in that kind of thing.
Throughout the pre-launch, so we're launching on February 28th, my parents' anniversary, actually. We're launching on February 28th, but leading up to that and then through it, we're going to be putting out 2 or 3 new videos a week of interviews with every creator who wanted. We don't force them. Every creator who wanted to be interviewed, I do interviews with them. It's actually some of the most fun I have. It happened because I was really uncomfortable as an Italian working with all these people so closely and never having had a conversation with them. So short of being able to have a meal with them, people in India and Canada and all. So at the very least, we should talk face to face, and everyone should see it. Let's get your banner raised, and let's let people hear what other projects you're working on. And we talk process. And if you go to Fugitive Poems on YouTube, go to the Fugitive Poems channel, you can see everyone we've worked with thus far, these great interviews. You find out so much about them and how they work in the comics, and just they're really cool people. And starting next week, we're going to be releasing all the ones from Volume 3.
Wow.
And there's some really great people that I got to talk to there. They're called Containment Breach 3-minute meets, and they are never
cool.
3 minutes, never 3 minutes, like 30.
Well, thank you so much, Christian and James. And listen, you make sure you come back on when you have Volume 4 coming out. That'd be great to add you to the friend of the show list. So there you go.
The gold garner.
Great.
All right, thank you so much for coming on, guys.
Thank you. This was a great time.
So, I was noticing. So last year when you were on, Christian, you were talking about one of your stretch goals was to cut your hair. Like you got your.
We did it.
Obviously, you did it, yeah, because your hair looks a lot shorter than it did last year.
I had 10 inches of a man bun. We got to, I forget what the stretch goal was, and I cut it live. My sister cut it off my head with a knife, like a samurai shaming ceremony live on Twitter.
Yeah, it was great. It was fun.
So, but are you gonna? James, you're gonna do the same thing this time, but like if you hit that goal of like 6,250, that you're gonna trim your beard or something like that. Or...
No. I got the hair this time.
Okay. Yeah.
You got
a nice
I might cut the hair. There's no way the beard's coming on.
You shave your head?
No, that was a travesty last time I did that. I figured out how much I'm balding.
I remember one summer I shaved my head and I realized I have like a really weird dent in my top of my head. Yeah. I'm like, all right, I'm not doing that anymore. All right, so let me do the intro and we'll jump right into it.